So for today's player profile, we're going to be discussing Andrew Wiggins. Obviously, Wiggs last season had a down year for his standards, filled with a lot of uncertainty, scrutiny, criticism. The ups and downs were very evident, and he found himself playing off the bench towards the beginning of the season because of it. Worked his way back into the starting lineup, and then eventually emerged as one of our best players towards the end of the season. So Andrew Wiggins, as many ups and downs as he's had the last couple of years, is still a critical, essential component to this roster. And for this team to reach its full potential and the ceiling that we all know it can, we're going to need him to be the best version of himself. So let's begin. Last season, Andrew Wiggins put up 13 points on 45% from the field, 35.8% from three, 4.5 rebounds, 1.7 assists, and 0.6 blocks, and 0.6 steals as well. 71 games played, so his durability actually wasn't the issue. It was more so the level of play, because his minutes went down. So 27 minutes per game is a handful of minutes fewer than what he usually does. He's usually around 30 minutes per night. So last season, obviously, his struggles early in the season resulted in that reduced playing time. And as we saw him get in more and more rhythm throughout the year, that playing time increased. And he was able to produce more, he was playing more efficiently, and he was a better player on both ends of the court. But ultimately, for his minutes to have gone up, he did have to play better, which eventually did take place. But again, his durability in terms of it, like being available to play games was not an issue. He played 71 games last year, and that's a major bright spot because again, he is an Iron Man for us, and that's one thing that we can't discount. As much as you can criticize Wiggins' passive nature or him not necessarily being involved in the offense or as aggressive as we'd like. One thing about him is he's going to play when he can, and he's going to play hard. So last year was no exception to that. One of his greatest strengths, hands down, if not the best, is his elite point of attack defense. He takes on every single night the toughest perimeter assignments. We're talking about the best wings in the NBA. Jason Tatum, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic. These are top 5, top 10 players that he is guarding on a game-to-game basis at a very high level. And so for him to be an elite point of attack defender for us in the starting lineup, for us to count on him to deliver and to play at that level every single night is something that we should never take for granted because that is something that is very difficult to replace. And if you go around the NBA, point of attack defense is one constant in every defensive contending team. You look at Boston, you look at OKC, you look at New York, right? OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort. The common denominator among all of the current contenders, even if you look at Minnesota after they made their trade, you still have Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. Every contending team, every team that has championship aspirations and are serious to win a championship and a title understands that having multiple point of attack defenders on the roster and specifically one that you can rely on every game to guard the best perimeter players on the opposing team is absolutely essential. And one of the great things that Wiggins does in terms of being an effective in high level point of attack defender is his mobility to mirror move to move. So for example, if he's guarding Ja Morant, he can use his quick hip movements, shifting move for move and mirroring Ja Morant's ability to get to different spots. That also applies to LeBron James. That also applies to Jason Tatum. Each player has a little bit of a different play style, different tendencies, different patterns. But Wiggins' ability to be malleable and adjust on the fly given his defensive assignment and matchup to mirror each move and having the mobility, the quick hips, the quick hands, the activity, and the engaged nature of having to guard ball screens, contest perimeter shots, or contain drives. These are all things that he does at a really high level, and he's done it for a few years now. This isn't a one-off last season or the year before that. This has been something that's taken place for the last 4 years, dating back to 2021. He's also a reliable tertiary scorer. On a contending team, obviously, he won't be your number one or number two, although he can be a number two in a series or can be a number two for a stretch. But ideally, if he's your third scorer, you're most likely going to be a contender, and he's very reliable at that. He's a slasher who can attack closeouts, put the ball on the floor, get to the rim, and put pressure on the basket. His athleticism pops off the screen. He plays with force, he plays with intent, and when he's attacking, when he's aggressive, very few players can stop him, if any. He has finished over the top of the likes of Anthony Davis, of Brandon Clark, of the Mavericks defense back in 2022 and completely obliterated that team single-handedly, dominated Boston in game 5. So we've seen when Wiggins is in attack mode, slashing, putting the ball on the floor, attacking the basket, collapsing the defense, and forcing the defense to respect his ability to drive the ball and create breakdowns. That is when he can score, get his own, but also create openings and lanes for others, whether it's shooters, cutters, or within the flow of the motion offense, finding guys and swing to open shots. So Andrew Wiggins has a very unique ability, given his size and athleticism, to continuously and relentlessly break the defense down. Another area of his game is spot-up shooting. This is an area that he's improved on tremendously over the few years that he's been here. Coming into Golden State, he was a career 33% three-point shooter. He wasn't someone that defenses respected. He wasn't someone that was reliable, and he was really considered a non-spacer. The last few seasons, working on his shot, getting the reps in, improving in terms of his form, his quickness, his shot release, and the consistency, Andrew Wiggins has turned into one of the best wing shooters in the NBA. The last few seasons, he's been shooting around 38, 39% from three. Even last season in a down year, he still shot around league average. And his spot up shooting is amongst the best at his position. So that's another area of his game that you can depend on. He's able to get up 5 or 6. The volume is there, the efficiency is there, and we expect that to continue going into the season. As a play finisher, he might be the best we have on the team. Obviously, Kuminga is definitely in the conversation, but Andrew Wiggins' ability to cut is most likely the best. Backdoor cuts, ghost cuts, 45 cuts. His ability to read the defense, understand how to create secondary actions, play off of Steph's gravity and Draymond's passing ability. Wiggins has a very good understanding of how to play in the read and react offense and the motion concepts that we like to run in Golden State. So his ability to cut back door, be efficient in the plays that he is ran for, be efficient in the spots and the shots that he takes. He doesn't need high volume. He doesn't need to take a lot of shots to be effective and to produce. Andrew Wiggins can fill in where he's needed. And one of the areas that he's at his best is when he's cutting, he's filling in the lanes, he's, able to take up a lot of space and use his athleticism to put pressure on the basket. So cutting is an essential part of our offense, and he is probably the best that does it on the roster. Off-ball duties, overall, he's an efficient catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, 39.5% since 2021-22. So Wiggins has been a fringe 40% catch-and-shoot three-point shooter for the last 3 years, even including last season as well in that sample. He's one of the best catch-and-shoot wing players in the NBA. And again, it speaks volumes to his ability to work on his game, improve in his craft, and ultimately become a well-rounded player. Not just a player that relies on his athleticism, but also can offer a skill set beyond that, which is his shooting. Screening actions. This is one of the more unique areas of his game that he's expanded on over the years. Andrew Wiggins is one of the better screening players that we like to use in terms of misdirection, in terms of mismatch hunting. For example, the cross screens. We run cross screens, also known as the head tap play, where Steph Curry will set a down screen for Wiggs to come baseline, and it'll force a switch where Steph's man ends up guarding Wiggins, and he can then back them down in the post and finish above the top. Take advantage of the mismatch. So Wiggins' ability to punish mismatches is something that's very key and essential. And we run a bunch of screens to get him in those actions. Cross screens, just as I mentioned, back screens to get him cutting to the rim. And again, causing misdirection, causing confusion for the defense, having to figure out whether they want to switch, whether they want to gap, whatever the coverage is. Andrew Wiggins is enough of an athlete to make them pay with just a little bit of separation. Also, the 1-3 pick and roll. One thing about Wiggins that's underrated is he's actually a very good roller in the pick and roll. And when he runs that pick and roll with Steph, the 1-3, he's able to take advantage of the space that Steph provides very effectively, as we saw again in Game 5 of the finals in 2022. Attacking the basket relentlessly, finishing with either hand, attacking above the rim, getting to his spots, the float game. Anywhere inside the paint, Andrew Wiggins is more than capable of punishing the defense, and he's very, very adept at playing off of Steph's gravity and Draymond's passing, as I mentioned earlier, which again is indispensable in the motion offense. And then he also spaces the court for other ball handlers to attack. One of the most underrated aspects of Wiggins' game is that because he's improved as a shooter over the past few years, he's now turned into a spacer. Not just a vertical spacer, but horizontally as a shooter. And what that does is it allows Steph, it allows JK, it allows Pods, Jordan Poole, over the years. These are some of the more premier ball handlers we've had on the roster to attack, to be aggressive, to try to look to score, and the defense can't necessarily cheat off on him as they once did. So Andrew Wiggins, one of the better offensive players that we have on the team, and even in a down year, still put up 13 points a game, which for most teams would be the fourth leading scorer. And we all know that he's capable of so much more. And we'll see what he does this season. Furthermore, he's capable of guarding multiple positions. His switch ability is some of the best in the NBA. He can guard 1 through 3. How many players can you name who are able to guard Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant, all in one game? Jonathan Kuminga might be able to do a good job on Kevin Durant, but can he really guard Devin Booker? Probably not. Gary Payton II can guard Devin Booker pretty well, but he can't guard Kevin Durant. Andrew Wiggins can guard all three. He can guard Book, Beal, KD. He can guard Kyrie, and he can guard Luka. He can guard LeBron. He can guard Rui Hachimura on the wing in the post. He can guard Anthony Edwards. He can guard Jaden McDaniels. His ability to guard 1 through 3 is very, very unique. He can guard Luka, like I said, and the fact that he can go from a slow-footed, crafty player like Luka to guarding Ja Morant, who's one of the fastest, most athletic players we've seen in this decade. The quick first step, the burst, the shiftiness, the ability to stay in front of a player like that is absolutely unique and unheard of, honestly. Klay Thompson, with all due respect, as great of a point of attack defender as he was in years past, was not necessarily as capable of guarding the premier athletes and the premier perimeter scorers. Klay was more so able to guard the better perimeter scorers like a James Harden, but he wasn't as easily able to guard the Russell Westbrooks, who are more athletic at their peak. So because Wiggins can do that, it speaks really, really highly of his switchability. And I think that's an area, because we've seen him guard, for example, on the Grizzlies, from Ja Morant to Jaren Jackson in the post. Again, the only other player on this team that can really come close to that is Draymond, from guarding on the perimeter to guarding in the post. His physical tools, you could argue this is his greatest attribute, his greatest ability is what he can do physically at 6'7", 197 pounds. Combination of size and agility, the quickness, speed, and length on the court stands out. It pops off the screen, as I said before. It's something that we can use. It's very unique to this roster in particular, because outside of Wiggins and JK, there's nobody else that comes close from an athleticism standpoint. He has exceptional leaping ability. His ability to get into the shot pocket, the release point of jump shooters, bother those shots, affect their looks, is some of the best I've seen in the NBA. And I can speak from experience because I've watched Andrew Wiggins from within 10 feet contest jump shots. And I can tell you firsthand, it is some of the most impressive things you'll see from a basketball player. his ability to get to the height of the shot and bother it at such an elite level. His quick first step, the ability to get past defenders, blow by, his long strides. One thing about Wiggins, he's more of a long strider than a quick change of direction player. So he's more long strides than shifty, and that's a good thing. That's more vertical than horizontal, right? He's not going to be a lateral change of direction player. He's going to be horizontal in terms of um, or vertical rather. He's going to be vertical in terms of downhill. So Wiggins likes to drive top of the key to the paint. He doesn't like to shift left to right to break his man off the dribble. He's someone that once he beats you, he's going to go downhill and he's going to go straight to the rim. Whereas there's other wings like a Kevin Durant who kind of are more horizontal with their movements. They're going to cross you over, step back, and then get to their two dribble pull up, right? Wiggins is more downhill. He's going to leverage his athleticism and punch on you when he gets the chance. 7-foot wingspan. One of the more rangy players we have on the roster. A 7-foot wingspan for a 6'7" player is a +5 in terms of the dimensions, and that is something that again stands out. His length, it bothers players. It's bothered LeBron. I've seen it bother Tatum. And it's bothered some of the premier wings in the NBA, even guys that are bigger than Wiggins himself. Wiggins being 6'7", having to guard a 6'9", 6'10" Jason Tatum, a 6'8", 6'9" LeBron, guys that are stronger and bigger, have a wider frame. The fact that he's able to bother their shots, get to the release point, and using his length and wingspan to do so is very, very unique, again, for a player at 6'7". As great as Jonathan Kuminga is, he isn't necessarily as equipped to defend at that level as Wiggins is. And I agree with what Melly Mel said. He made a very good point. Shea doesn't want any problems with Wiggins. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has a very long wingspan, around 6'11", I believe. But Wiggins has had his number for years, and he's actually one of the few players in the NBA that can do as good of a job on Shea as anyone else. And that's the Canadian connection there as well, with the national team having that experience. And De'Aaron Fox, too. Absolutely. Staying in front of Fox. Andrew Wiggins might be the only player we have on the roster that can go from shutting De'Aaron Fox down to then guarding Keegan Murray off the ball. The only other player that can come close is Draymond. Again, like I said before. Guarding De'Aaron Fox to guarding Keegan Murray. His explosiveness, as I mentioned earlier, he's a vertical threat. I mentioned his exceptional leaping ability, but I want to mention his explosion off the bounce. His ability to get over the top, finish above the rim, and punching over Anthony Davis. For example, in Game 3 of the 2023 semifinals against the Lakers. So that's one play that comes to mind, and we've seen him dunk over Cat. We've seen him dunk over many players. And when he has that mindset of attacking with full force, relentless, unforgiving, and putting bodies in the basket, Andrew Wiggins is one of the most unstoppable players when he gets to the rim. And we need him to be uber aggressive this year and, really emphasize that as well. Some more strengths. His shot creation capabilities. Andrew Wiggins came into the NBA as a 17-point-a-game scorer en route to winning Rookie of the Year. He didn't win Rookie of the Year by accident. He won it because he was one of the best young scorers in the NBA. He came in averaging 17 and perennial 20-point-a-game scorer in Minnesota. In fact, a career-high 23.5 points a game in 2016-17. So Andrew Wiggins has shown the ability to create his own shot for many years. That's an area of his game that's been the case at a very good level. Now, obviously in Golden State, he's been asked to take a bit of a step back. He hasn't been someone that has been asked to take on the scoring burden as much due to the fact that we've had Jordan Poole, we've had Klay Thompson. So we've had other options that may be a little bit better, more suited to the motion offense, and Wiggins has focused more on the defensive end. However, it doesn't take away from the fact that he still is capable and still is able to score and create his own shot. And in the ways he does include attacking mismatches, such as the baby hook I mentioned earlier, backing down smaller defenders, such as point guards, finding himself, Jamal Murray on him, backing him down, getting to spots, backing down a Ja Morant, backing down even a Bradley Beal, right? Smaller players, weaker players who he can punish physically in the paint and get to his spots. And his touch around the basket is actually very good when he does get to these areas on the court. So one thing about Andrew Wiggins, he's able to really get to different spots on the floor. Another shot that he goes to is his turnaround, especially on the baseline. That turnaround mid-range where he's able to get to that, 8 to 12 footer and back down his man to get the shot released over the top. The turnaround and the baby hook are two of the shots, and as well as the push shot, might I add. The push shot, he's able to get off when, slightly bigger players guard him, but he can really guide the ball into the basket, and he does a good job of really getting to those, restricted area positions to get that off. His slashing ability, as I mentioned earlier, providing rim pressure, right? He can create off the bounce. He can get to the rim with his dribble and have a full head of steam ahead, providing pressure at the basket and really attacking with force. So we've seen that in the past as well. And he's been more selective and more calculated, more intentional with his pull-up jumpers, not settling for bad shots, looking to pass up the long twos and taking threes. Wiggins' shot selection and his shot diet has become more efficient, it's become more restricted, and it's become more effective overall. And I think that is why he's become a more overall quality scorer for the Warriors, is because if you watched him in Minnesota, he was falling into bad habits. His shot selection, his efficiency, all of that was in question. All of that led to him being labeled as the face of losing basketball. But once he joined the Warriors, he was able to actually, you know, place value on where he wants to attack and be intentional with how he wants to be effective. And because of that, now we're watching him, he's one of the most efficient players on the team. When you look at his three-point shooting, when you look at his field goal percentage, in terms of volume scoring, he's probably one of the 3 or 4 most efficient players we have. Connective passing. One thing about Wiggins is that he's a very underrated connective passer. He's able to make the swing play, make the extra pass. He's not afraid to, break the defense down, drive and kick. So he's a guy, especially in the short roll, he can definitely find openings in the lane and kick out to different shooters or cutters in a pinch. So even though it's not a part of his game that's featured very often, we don't really see Wiggins play make that much. He does have connective passing qualities, and he has moved the ball very quickly throughout the past few years in terms of just point 0.5 basketball, right? Understanding that we play in a system, we play motion and read and react, so you have to play point 0.5 basketball, make quick decisions, and with those quick decisions, you got to move off the ball, you got to cut, you got to screen, you got to pass. And those are all things that he's capable of. Veteran presence, his willingness to sacrifice. He's someone that's going to sacrifice his role, sacrifice his minutes, sacrifice his shots, sacrifice his money for the betterment of the team. And these are all things that he's done over the years. Obviously, he's a very unselfish player. He's someone that wants to win, and he's someone that, is willing to take a step back for those that, may want to take a step forward if it means it helps us winning and for the betterment of the overall team. In addition to the fact that he's very low maintenance. He doesn't demand a lot. He doesn't complain a lot, right? There is no instance of Wiggins being a locker room issue. He's always been someone that's a stand-up guy. He's a good character, good professional, and he carries himself like a true warrior. And there's no complaints in terms of his character on and off the court. He's someone that is, consistent, durable, an Iron Man. And I'm proud for him to have worn the jersey because the Warriors jersey represents just that. What Steph Curry built this culture to. Steph built this culture of selflessness, of winning culture, and also playing hard every night and not being a guy that takes away from others but rather gives back. And Wiggins has done just that. When he was benched last season, he didn't complain. He wasn't complaining about minutes, complaining about shots. He fought for it back and he earned it back. Many players would complain, such as Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson was not so happy when he got benched, and he let the entire team know. And for someone like Wiggins to have not been on the Warriors for as long as Klay has, to be someone that embodies the Warriors culture the way he has is very, very admirable. And he deserves a lot of credit for it. Because again, in terms of embodying what it means to be a Golden State Warrior, I have Steph Curry at the top, And if you look at this roster, the only other player to me that comes close is Kevon Looney and Andrew Wiggins. Now, in terms of weaknesses, one of the biggest issues that people have brought up is his lack of assertiveness offensively. Sometimes Wiggins is a little bit too passive, right? So he's floating. He's not really aggressive enough. He may be complacent when finishing, looking to avoid contact rather than inviting it. We've seen this for stretches and for, parts of the season in the past. Doesn't always finish with force, right? And part of that might be because he's a subpar free throw shooter, right? Someone that kind of struggles a little bit at times. Now, last season, he shot 75% at the free throw line. So that is a very encouraging sign. For someone that has not been a great free throw shooter for the majority of his Warriors career, for him to shoot 75% at the line last season was a very, very encouraging step, a bright step. And I think with Wiggins, like the lack of assertion is something that he can definitely, with the help of Steve running plays for him, with the help of Steph empowering him, and himself taking it upon himself to be aggressive and to be assertive, I think we can see a very, very dominant season from him in particular, comparable to 2021 and 2022 when he averaged around 17 points a game. So I expect Wiggins this season to be more assertive and aggressive overall. But like I said, this is a weakness that we've seen from him. And obviously, you can argue it in a way it's a strength in some ways because it also allows others to get theirs and it doesn't step on their toes. So it's a balance. Your greatest strength can also be your greatest weakness. And so he just needs to find the balance. I think the biggest thing for Wiggins, the most important thing is for him to just find a balance between getting his and allowing others to get theirs. Another area of his game that, has been a little bit nitpicked over the years is his loose handle. He doesn't have the tightest handles. His dribble is sometimes high, and it kind of limits his ability to create his own shot. Like I mentioned earlier, he's not a very lateral shot creator. He's not someone that's going to create his own shot east to west, right? Not like Kevin Durant or Jason Tatum. He's someone that's more going to go downhill, straight line drives. And so you see right here, he drives in straight lines, gets downhill, and attacks with force, which is a good thing. But it also takes away from maybe an ability to get to your spots. The crossover, the step backs, the behind the backs, all of that are things that Wiggins hasn't really been advanced in. And because of that, it's kind of limited his ceiling as a shot creator. And also, he's not a guy that's going to create for teammates consistently, like a Jason Tatum. Tatum is someone that's going to get to his spots, beat his man, and then create openings for shooters, drive and kick. While Wiggins is capable of it, he just doesn't do it at a high enough volume and consistently. But some of that has to do with the fact that he is the third or fourth option overall. So his role is diminished. Therefore, his playmaking will be diminished. He's more of a play finisher than a playmaker, if that makes sense. And then the last thing is he lacks the ability to rebound at an appropriate level. As far as rebounding goes, I wouldn't say he's a bad rebounder, but I'm not so sure he rebounds at the level we expect him to. Last season, he averaged around 4.5 rebounds. His career high is 5. If he can get to a little bit over 5 rebounds a game, I think that would be incredible. A couple years ago, when he got at 5 rebounds, that's around average for a small forward, about 5 or 5.5. Some of the best small forwards in the NBA, like LeBron, Tatum, KD, these guys are at 7, 8. So if Wiggs can just get to like that 5, 5.5 mark, I think that'll be a good range for him to aim for. And I think he's not a bad rebounder, but he's not quite exactly the rebounder you would hope. But I will also acknowledge too, part of the reason his rebounding numbers aren't as high as they maybe should be is also because he plays point of attack defense. And when you are on the perimeter and you're guarding at the point of attack, it takes you away from the basket. The distance between the ball and the player is further when the shot goes up, and therefore it puts him in less of a physical position to actually inhale those rebounds. So that should also be provided in as context. Now, as far as expectations go, consistent role and minutes starting at small forward. I know some people have brought up, like, might he come off the bench? I don't think there's any chance he comes off the bench. To me, he's a starter. Last season, he closed the season strong, very high level on both ends, and he's been a starter for the majority of his Warriors career, with the exception of a few games here and there. So Andrew Wiggins will be a starter next season, and he's going to be playing a lot of minutes. We need him to defend. One of the reasons he's going to start is because he's our best perimeter defender. And for us to be successful, we need him to be out there guarding the best and toughest matchups. So he will have a tertiary shot creator role. He will be someone that has the ball in his hands and be a third ball handler, be a third scorer on given nights, whether it's Steph or JK, give and take or taking turns. Wiggins can fill in that third scoring role. And you see, he'll be featured in the offense. The self creation and isolation is going to be there, punishing mismatches, attacking switches, right? Overwhelming smaller players physically, and then bursting and blowing past bigger players that are less mobile, such as centers or power forwards that are guarding him on the perimeter and taking advantage of that. Now, as a play finisher, Wiggins, spot up shooting, off ball cutting. Those are areas of his game that he will also be very, very excellent at. His shooting over the past few years has been very good at 38% from three. And he's someone that the defense has to respect. He's probably our best front court shooter on the roster. Out of Trace, Draymond, Kuminga, and Wiggins, Wiggins is by far the best three-point shooter that we have. So his spot up shooting is going to be valuable, catch and shoot. And he's even showed some flashes of some off-screen shooting, like pin downs. So you might even see Wiggs come off a couple of pin downs here and there as well. And then, like I mentioned, his off-ball cutting, the ability to get off the ball and cut back door, run misdirection, confuse the defense, force them to make decisions, and break them down, whether it's ghost cuts, 45 cuts, taking advantage of the open lanes and the space that Steph Curry creates and being effective in those spots. That's what he does best. And then, like I mentioned, his defensive versatility. Being a wing stopper, guarding threes, some of the best threes in all of basketball. We're talking about Luka Doncic, like I said, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, LeBron James, Anthony Edwards. These are some of the best players you can defend at that level. And he will be guarding them. He will be on the higher end of matchup difficulty. His frame, explosion, and length, all of these things are why he can guard 1 through 3, because his physical tools allow him to stay in front of his man, mirror, move for move, and be able to use his quick hips and hands to be able to be effective on the defensive end against any type of matchup. We're talking about point guards that are quick and shifty and fast and have burst first step, and also slower wings that are more perimeter oriented, that are a little bit bigger, shiftier, but play with more size. And the fact that he is such a versatile defender that can guard virtually any play style, any skill set, any frame, any physical specimen, such as LeBron, for example, someone that's 6'8", 6'9", 250. For Andrew Wiggins to guard him at a shorter height and a lighter weight is incredibly impressive. And we've watched Wiggins give LeBron a lot of trouble over the years in a Golden State Warriors uniform. In addition to Lauri Markkanen, too, because guarding Lauri Markkanen at 7 feet is something that's very difficult for a lot of players to do. And Wiggins did a fantastic job on him last season, shutting him completely down on drives, cutting the lanes off, and then contesting his three-point shots, getting to the release point as well, closing out on shooting for Lauri Markkanen. So he is one of the best defenders you can ask for. And then at the point of attack, like I mentioned, lateral quickness, screen navigation, his quick hips, his shiftiness, his ability to move and slither through screens, his misdirection in terms of his ranginess and his foot speed, all of that, his ability to change direction quickly is essential to him being an effective defender. Guarding ball screens, we're talking about the shiftiest players in the NBA, like Devin Booker or John Morant, Kyrie Irving. These are guys that he can defend. And, these ball screens are very difficult to navigate at times. Jonathan Kuminga has struggled with it the last few years. Klay Thompson, obviously, Chris Paul last season, Jordan Poole. Wiggins is the only player that I really trust outside of Gary Payton to really navigate ball screens properly and stay with his man, stay connected, and not create enough separation to where he's out of the play. he always stays in the play, and that's absolutely essential. Now, for my player projection for Andrew Wiggins next season, I have him playing 31.7 minutes a game. About around 32, he'll be back to his normal minutes. Last season, he was around 27 per game, which is obviously a career low. The reason that was the case was because he was out of the rotation. He struggled a little bit to start the year, and his minutes fluctuated as his role did. Next season, I anticipate he will be playing somewhere in the low 30s. Now, in addition to that, I have him averaging 17.4 points. He will be back to averaging around 17 to 18 points a game, like he did in 2021 and 2022, and as he started the season in 2023. So that is what I expect of him. 4.8 rebounds, 2.3 assists, a steal, about almost a block a game, 47% from the field, 38.7% from three, and 73.6% at the line. I have him being a plus 183 on the season. He'll be a positive. Even last season, right, he was a negative overall, but if you looked at Andrew Wiggins from the All-Star break onwards, the last 40 plus games, he was a very conclusive positive. He was one of our best positives on the roster, and I expect that to carry over and continue that momentum, that the ability for him to find his groove, his rhythm, as quickly as he did. I think this season he'll take a jump in terms of getting right back into that and taking off immediately, being able to have an impact on the defensive end, cutting, hitting his shots, and attacking with force. So I have him back as an efficient 47% player that can shoot the three-point shot at a 38-39% clip. And those are his normal scoring averages around that range. And like I said, a massive positive, around 17 points a game. He's going to be one of our top scorers next year. I have him being our third leading scorer behind Steph and Kuminga. So I believe Andrew Wiggins is due for a great season. The last couple of years, he's been in and out of the lineups. He struggled. Obviously, he's had a lot to deal with off the court, and he's navigated that really well. For someone that, has had such an uncertain personal life, he's shown up when he can, and he's delivered. He's played hard. He's obviously in 2023 was doing an amazing job in the playoffs until his rib broke, or his rib got cracked by LeBron in the post. And then the offseason, he didn't have enough time to recover, to fully heal, and get a full offseason of work in to actually get in condition for the following season. Last year, he came in out of shape for obvious reasons, and then the rest is history. But the good news is the momentum he built towards the end of last year is something we should all expect to carry over into next. And that is why I expect him to have a big season. And the plus 183 right now is one of the highest that I've listed so far. The only one higher is Draymond at plus 212 that I have. So he will be a clear, conclusive, and severe positive for us when he's on the court. He will be making winning plays. I expect him to also, even on nights where Andrew Wiggins struggles shooting the ball or struggles offensively, I expect him to still be very active and tenacious on the defensive end and from a rebounding standpoint, because those are areas that even in 2022, in the playoffs specifically, when he was struggling with his shot, when he was struggling to score, he still provided a ton of value in the intangibles. And he's not someone that's going to demand a lot of possessions, demand a lot of shot attempts, and all that comes with being a 6'7" wing in today's game, right? You see a lot of players want, the shots, the opportunity, the playing time. He'll fill in where he can. If that means he has to crash the offensive boards, he'll do that. If that means he has to catch and shoot off the ball or cut off the ball, he'll do that. If that means he has to play the dunker spot or run in transition hard, he'll do that. Wiggins is someone that is willing to play whatever role he's given and fill in wherever he can, not taking away possessions from Steph and Kuminga, but rather playing within the flow of the offense, playing within the flow of the team, playing in a team concept, never taking away from anyone else, and only being a complementary piece to everybody else's skill set. So can't speak highly enough about Wiggs. Obviously, last season was a down year. He admitted it himself, but it's a new season. He had a full off season to train, to work out, to get in shape, and to get shots up. And I think he'll look really good going into next year. Training camp is going to be huge, and we're going to be keeping a close eye during preseason because he will be a starter next to Steph and Draymond. And that trio is one of the deadliest in the league. Statistically speaking, Steph, Wiggins, Draymond is one of the better on-court three-man lineups that you could name in the NBA. So, with that said, that is what I have for Andrew Wiggins. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we got Brandon Pajemski tomorrow, so we'll be discussing him. And make sure you subscribe and you rewatch if you want any other player profiles on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@chasingwins, and join playback.tv/chasingwins if you want to join the discussion. So appreciate everybody for listening.